Hey, I'm Michael Bell. I am the owner of Dallas Half Acre Farm. I'm a part-time farmer, full-time elementary PE teacher, looking to retire in the next 4 or 5, maybe 6 years. And at that point, I will go from part-time farmer to full-time farmer. And I love this space so much. And I'm just wanting to share with the world how you can part-time farm with hopefully one day full-time farming when you retire or move on to another career. And I really hope I can share my experience and knowledge with the people out there to motivate them to do the same.
That's awesome to hear. Lines right up with what I love doing is helping people talking about this type of stuff. And I think it comes at an interesting time in the market garden space. I think the market gardening space more or less came a fad, if you will, in the 2015, 2020 COVID hit. It went gangbusters. I think you've seen a dip, a recession in the interest in farming where markets that people thought they could sell to just weren't as big as they thought, bad business plans, too many people jumping into the unknown without knowing what they were doing. I think a lot of farms have failed over the last few years. So this information I think is timely in the sense of, hey, if you're going to do it, you might be doing it in a little tougher environment, but you can do it smartly. What's your take on farming, market farming in 2025 is a business? Is it viable? Do you feel good about it going forward?
I think the space, like market farming in general, there's going to be a bigger need as time moves on. Every year that passes, I think it's more important to have more farmers market farming, small scale farming, urban ag, whatever you want to call it. Right now, you mentioned earlier about COVID. Everybody jumped in there during 2019, 2020 with the uncertainty of what was going to happen in the future. And they did it more out of being scared than they did out of actually having a business plan. I want to grow my own food. I want to sell it to my neighbors. And in theory, it works. But then you actually go to do it. And on paper, it's not near as easy as it is on paper. I get a lot of backlash for what I'm about to say, but farmers markets, I think people depend on them way too much. I'll just get in a farmer's market and I'll sell everything that I have. There's been people that have been there 10, 15 years that are just scratching by, and now you're going to come in. Just because you come in doesn't mean there's a 20 or 25% increase in customers. It's that same number of customers. Now you're just splitting the pie with other farmers. So I think, and I do a lot of consulting, mainly people wanting to start. And that's the first thing every single person says. There's a good farmer's market down the street. And I hear them out, listen to them, of course, and then I always tell them, okay, that's great. But let's think outside the box because there's already farmers there that sell into customers. And just because you go, more customers aren't going to show up. So you're taking profit from other farmers, possibly. And it's just not a good idea for that to be your only source of income, revenue that you're counting on. And I always preach to new farmers also, don't count on restaurants and grocery stores your first year or two because they don't care about you as a farmer. They care about keeping their shelves stocked. I always tell people grocery stores, the refrigeration part is the most expensive part of an entire grocery store. They have to have that refrigeration spot full or they're going to cut you. They're going to say, no, you missed a week. Sorry. Because they just can't afford to lose that most expensive part of a grocery store. And then restaurants are the same thing. Chefs, they don't, it sounds mean, but they don't care that your arugula got aphid infestation and you don't have it for 3 weeks because you have to replant because their menu isn't going to change. Some of them do. They're small enough they can be flexible with the menus. But all that to say is first, second, third, even fourth or fifth year farmers aren't normally good enough as a farmer to be able to consistently grow for these chefs, grocery stores, even farmers markets for that matter. With all that being said, I think that's where a lot of the farms have failed is they have great produce for certain parts of the year. And then when it gets 100 degrees and they can't grow salad mix, for example, unless you're Ray Tyler, that really hurts their income because there's only so many other things you can grow when it's 100 degrees, but they didn't plan ahead enough to have a little bit of money put back for those really bad times. In Texas, for me, July and August are my slowest times because of the heat. It's 105 plus 60 straight days. Whereas during the winter up north, that's their slow time of the year. That's when I make my most money is in the winter. So people have to realize when their slow time is going to be, and they have to have enough money saved up in order to make it through those slow times, those first few years, so that they can just make it through those slow times. You got to have that money saved up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in here. So that's a good outline for the whole episode. And I totally,
Sorry.
no, it's good because it's flowing. And I think there's a lot, but I don't want to gloss over some of it because I think you dropped a lot of great points and there's a lot of knowledge there. So obviously you aren't a farmer's market farm and
No.
you're growing on in Dallas area, 0.37 acres, the small scale market farm, urban farm style model, limited crops. We can get into all of that just to give people some idea of what you're doing. So that leaves, if you take out restaurants, you take out grocery stores, you take out farmers markets, it leaves more direct to consumer, CSA, or some sort of online store, farm stand type model. And I know just from some prep you gave me, you're the CSA model. For people, I guess there's two sides to every coin. One of the common things you'll hear around a CSA is it's tricky because you're committing on a weekly basis to deliver week after week. You really have to have crop planning dialed in. But the good thing is you get paid, they're ride or die with you through thick or thin on it. What are your thoughts for somebody new? If, and let's just say, I think most new farmers, they come in two ways. I've worked at a farm and now I'm starting my own, or I've gardened and now I'm starting my own farm. So for somebody in those scenarios coming in that wants to run this CSA type model, which you have and you can explain it, what are the things that you think lend itself to somebody who's new?
All right. So let me first say this. If you've been market farming for 10 years and you are really good at it, what I'm about to say is going to be no good to you. This is strictly for people starting out or maybe having a problem the first couple of years. Let me put that out there because I know this isn't what full-time 60, 70,000, $80,000 a year market farms do. This is what I do doing it part-time and when I first started out. And it's been really successful doing it this way once I figured it out. Is I pick 3 to 4 crops a season, and that's it. And that allows me to focus on those 3 to 4 crops. Because what I've learned, and experience is the best teacher, is because I've always wanted to do a CSA. I never wanted to do restaurants. I never wanted to do grocery stores. I always wanted to do CSA because I like people. I like the interaction between people. When I started my CSA, I was going to do 9, 10 crops every season, $25 basket of CSA stuff. What I learned is I couldn't do that, especially doing it part time. Even if I was doing it full time, I just didn't have the knowledge of how to plan, how to grow that many crops, how to space that many crops, how to physically water, take care of that many crops. So after a year or two, I figured out, you know what? I'm going to scale down to Curtis Stone made it famous, the 80/20 philosophy, or in my eyes, he did because he always talked about it. So I grow salad mix 9 to 10 months out of the year until it just gets too hot. That's my bread and butter. And I always tell new farmers I work with, that is your base. Everything else goes on top of salad mix. So if you want to do, let's just take fall, winter, into early spring. I do salad mix, carrots, spring onions. Those are the 3 main crops that I do. They're pretty easy. Once you get carrots to germinate, carrots are simple. There's not a lot of bugs that mess with them. Onions are probably the easiest crop you can grow. And when I say onions, I call them spring onions. The bulbs are about the size of your thumb, maybe a little bit bigger, but the greens get massive. And most of my customers eat the greens they cut them up and put them in the salad or whatever. So I do those 3 crops, maybe kale, maybe some radishes here and there if I've got the space and stuff like that. But those are the main 3 for the winter. And then going into the summer, it's salad mix, tomatoes, and then squash, zucchini I count as the same thing. And then if I want to throw out a few extra peppers here and there, but I don't count on them. If they produce, great. I know I can sell them, but I don't really count on them. And then so I do 3 or 4 crops, and I can really focus on those 3 or 4 crops. And I pick those crops because they're really easy to grow once you figure out salad mix. Onions are easy, carrots are easy, tomatoes are pretty simple. I only do cherries. I don't do any slicers because in Texas they split too easily. And even though me and you know a split tomato is just as good as a beautiful tomato, it's hard to sell because people in the city don't know what a split tomato, why they split. They just don't understand the concept. They're used to Kroger, beautiful red tomatoes with no taste. And then the squash and zucchini is relatively easy once you figure out how to handle the bugs. And those are all very easy to sell. In Texas, I can sell those all day long, and I have the customer base because, like you said, I'm in Dallas. That's the start of how I started doing it a few years ago with those very simple crops. And like I said, every once in a while I'll throw in a 20-foot bed of radishes just because I know I can sell them once every few months. It's not something I can sell every single week in my CSA basket. Might do the same thing with beets every once in a while. If I'm kind of got a lull, I'll throw in some beets. So during the summer, maybe some okra off to the side. But I never really, those aren't something I count on. That's just extra icing on the cake.
Okay. So I like this simplification of things. I think I totally agree. I think the less you can do, not even just at the beginning, but really throughout your career, the better you are, where you can really just focus on one thing, hone in on it, do it well, know it, master it, and rinse and repeat.
Yep.
The devil's advocate listening to this would say that's not enough stuff. People don't want that stuff all the time. There's just not enough variety. What would you say to them?
I understand what they're saying. My CSA model is biweekly. So I have 2 lists so I have a week A and week B. I've got 7 or 8 people that are vegetarians that are on the same list. They get it every week. But I learned early on, if I do biweekly, they run out of the salad in about 10 days. So instead of on day 7, they're like, oh God, we've got to eat this salad, honey, because Mike's bringing more tomorrow. I don't want them to have to, I want them to look forward to it. So I would rather on Wednesday, they'd be like, hey, this is the last of the salad. Mike will bring some more on Sunday. You give them 3 or 4 days with none of your produce, and they're looking forward to it on day 14. And again, I have an unlimited number of customers. Like I'll have 3 million people basically that I could drive within 20 to 30 minutes and deliver to. Now, would I drive 20 minutes and deliver 1 basket? No, I wouldn't. But that's a whole nother conversation. So when people say I can't have 2 weeks, 2 lists bi-weekly, I need them every single week. And sounds simple, but get more customers.
Yeah.
Which in Dallas is easy. I understand if you're in a small town, that's tougher. But if you're in a city and you're urban ag and you're in a pretty good sized city, you can find enough customers to fill up 2 weeks worth of deliveries.
Do you have a term CSA, meaning somebody signs up for a certain amount of time? What's the sign up, or how does somebody enroll, get on one of these lists? What's that look like?
So it's usually by word of mouth. I get text messages all the time. Hey, Megan sent me your text. Send me your number. Can I get on your list? I'll had some more salad the other night, and I want some. And if I have space, if I have it, I just say, okay, I'll deliver. Where do you live is the first thing I say. And if they live in the neighborhood that I'm already delivering to, I just add them and say, look, okay, I'll deliver next Thursday. It's every other Thursday for your neighborhood. Because I deliver to a different area 6 days a week. Every day of the week is a different delivery area. I've put all the people, like 6 people on Tuesday night is across the highway from me. Wednesday is my administration building that I teach in Mesquite. So I deliver on Wednesday. So people like, you deliver everywhere? Yes, but I deliver everywhere on certain days of the week to a different location.
And is it week by week? Somebody can opt into that week?
Usually if they skip 2 or 3 weeks, I just quit. I just don't take them any more stuff until they contact me back. Does that make sense?
So say I'm interested. I'll get
Uh-huh.
on one of your lists. I'm in an
Yep.
area. I pay you up front for what?
Nope.
Nope,
You
I
don't
don't.
pay me up front.
Okay.
Nope. That's the other difference in me is I don't want the stress of me having to produce for you. And if something happens, like tornado comes by and tears my farm apart, which it almost did 2 years ago, missed it by half a mile. I don't want to have to refund you money, and I hate taking people's money and not delivering what I told them I would. Plus, I like the weekly cash flow. It's just easier for me to have cash. I just like the cash flow. I tell them they can either Venmo me, and I have a ton of customers that leave cash under the mat, which sounds old school, but we both know what cash under the mat means as far as taxes and stuff goes. So it's
Right.
a huge help that way. And I guess the back to your original question is how does it work? I send out a text, hey, and it's on a group text to those 6 people I'm dealing across the street on Tuesday. Hey, I'll be at your house around 7:30. Okay, great. And if somebody's, hey, I'm on vacation. Okay, no problem. Understand. I'll get you in 2 weeks. And then I just skip them that week.
Okay, so you keep it ultimately really flexible. So
Very
people that
flexible.
aren't familiar with CSAs, the one of the cons or potential cons of a CSA is pressure, and you alluded to this, that comes from somebody paying you up front for a term. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
deliver at some frequency for a given term, weekly for 30 weeks. So that puts this gorilla on your back of having to produce every week thereafter for that time. And that can be stressful if you're new, if you don't have production dialed in. You said, hey, that can be worrisome. I'll do it week to week. I'll bring it to
Mm-hmm.
you. You want it that week. You accept it. You pay me that week. Next week, you're gone. You don't. You want to drop out at any time. That's fine. So you're not getting the advantage of the cash up front, but you're taking away the pressure of having that commitment. You're just growing, knowing and I guess the other part of this is you have to have a big enough pool to know that on any given week, there's going to be some people that opt out, that you just need to have 80 people on the list because you need 35 to say yes or something like that.
Yeah, and one other point I want to make about my model of the CSA is so few people, especially nowadays, has the five, six, $700 to drop up front. Whereas everybody's got most of my stuff is usually anywhere from $12 to $15 a week is what I sell to each person. So everyone's always got 12, $15. There's one lady that pays me $100 and then I just keep a check with it. And then she just sends me another 100 whenever she runs out. When that money's gone, she sends me more. And this sounds really overwhelming, but when you start out, people's like, how do you keep track of everything? When you start out with 5 customers, like I did, and then you grow to 7, and then 3 months later, you grow to 10, you know these people. Okay, like I have one lady, Rudy, she's gone the whole month of July. She's gone all month of July because she's a teacher and she goes on vacation. I know she's not going to be there in July. So you start to learn these people's time schedules. I've got a group of people who go to church on Wednesday nights. So I don't deliver to that neighborhood on Wednesday nights anymore because they're always gone on Wednesdays and I don't want to leave their stuff out on the front porch too long. The model sounds complicated, but when you start with it at the very beginning, you start with such a small 5, 6, 7 people like a new farmer might start with, it's way easier to keep track of.
I think that's also good for new people because this kills some of the initial intimidation. I'm training for a marathon. Day
Mm-hmm.
one, you can try and run 26 miles and fail miserably and never run the marathon. Or day one,
Yeah.
you can put some running shoes on and try and get around the block. And if you can do that, then you need to go a little further on day two. And the CSA analog is I have to sell to 50 people, $700 right up front. I'm nervous about producing. They're nervous about giving me a check. Where am I going to find 50 people? I don't know how to market this. This wipes a lot of that off. Can I find a few people that I
Mm-hmm.
probably know to some extent and say, here's what I'm doing. Would you be interested? There's no commitment. It's week by week, not a huge cash outlay. They're probably closely held people in your life to start. And that's a lower pressure situation, which with anything, I think gives you some momentum and confidence to then go off and build off of. And it's not, this doesn't work on paper financially. If you're looking to make a living doing this, you're not making it off 5 people.
Mm.
So forget
Nope.
that. But I think in the beginning, that shouldn't be a concern anyway. It's you're learning how to do all of this. So let's learn in a real life scenario with effectively training wheels on and really step in a comfortable way, get used to it. Because then when you go from 5, like you said, to 7, that's not a huge jump. You can produce a little more. And then you go to 10. And as you're going up with customers, you've also, in theory, gotten better at managing your systems and growing and all of that. So I think it's a really interesting approach if people can look past the low financial gratification at the beginning.
And that's one reason why I work so much with people who are close to retirement, because they know there's a great guy up in Baltimore. He's 3 years away from retiring. And he saw me on a podcast and he DM'd me. He goes, "Hey, I want to do exactly the way you're doing it. I've got 3 years to retirement. I want to build this up so the day that I retire, I can go full force into this." And it's worked perfectly. He's got one more year. He had to cap the people that he was selling to because he just maxed out his time, but he's got a waiting list. And when he retires, that next day, he puts in a 40-hour week on the farm. If he wants to do 30, whatever you want to do when you have that full-time schedule, you can do. The other part that we haven't really discussed is the scalability of doing it this way. And it's worked so well for me being able to scale up. So I started with 5, and as soon as I was comfortable producing those 5, all I did was send a text to those 5 people. And I'm like, "Hey, if anyone that lives around you," and most of them was really close to me, or they even taught at my school. "If anybody lives around you, or your mom wants a bag or whatever, I'm taking on 3 or 4 new customers every other week." And I had 10 text messages just waiting. Like, "Oh yeah, I've got 2 people here. There's 3 people over here." And I'm like, "Oh crap, that's not what I meant."
Yeah.
Like, so that's when I had to tell them, "Okay, give me a little bit of time." Like another 3 months, I scaled up again. And another thing with farming, new farmers, is debt. Debt, just especially with land prices, is a huge obstacle for new farmers. You got to buy cat tunnels, and you got to buy this, you got to buy that, you got to buy this. If you do it the way we're talking, you can scale up without be going into debt. You might have that initial $5,000 worth of debt for equipment, cat tunnels, whatever you want to buy as far as that goes. But then after that, since you're doing it part time and you're not relying on that money, you can take that money and reinvest it in your farm. And that's exactly what I've done. I haven't put one dime of my school teaching money into my farm in 5 years. But if you look at my farm now, I've got a 130-foot cat tunnel, and I just purchased and put up a 30 by 100 high tunnel I bought it used and put it up myself, and I've got like $5,000 in it, but it's completely paid for. And I'm going to be able to grow 700 running feet of tomatoes this summer because of that high tunnel. And I can sell every cherry tomato I can get. So doing it this way, scaling, I've been able to buy better equipment, more high tunnels, and I'm debt free. Everything on my farm is paid for.
Which I love that model because you can get in a lot of danger going the other way. I think a lot of people in my experience getting into this, or a big slice of the new farmer pie, are people doing it on the side. So they have a job and they want to start something on the side. If you think about starting stuff on the side and you know it, this is where your book, and for people, if you're not aware, Michael's writing a book that'll be coming out forthcoming, and that's the basis for this episode. So there'll be a lot of resources there. You're really looking at profitable part-time farming with a scalable model. If I'm part-time farming, just by definition, I only have part-time hours to apply. If I commit to a big customer base, That means I have to have a relatively larger area in production, which can be tougher part-time. So if I have less hours, less customers, that's less beds in production in the beginning to manage, so you can do a lot of what you're doing, get in and get out. And then usually when you get experience, uh, assuming most people follow this curve, with more experience, you can do more in the same amount of time. So as you grow, because you also probably also have leverage up on equipment and appropriate
Hmm.
technology and stuff like that. So you start part-time with a manageable workload for the hours that you have, instead of diving in, taking all this huge farm on and really trying to have two full-time jobs. Scale up, build your market. You mentioned getting referrals, getting other people to give you feedback. All that's super valuable. And you can do it on a lower budget, which a lot of people want these days. They're not coming into this with tens of thousands of dollars that they're willing to risk starting up. And you also, you need less beds. You potentially live on that land. That land might not get you your $100,000 a year farm that you need to be at when you go full time 5 years from now, but it might get you five customers for the first year and a half.
Yeah, no, everything you just said is 100% correct. And I'm glad someone that's been in the game as long as you have recognizes how important starting off small is, because Instagram's great, YouTube's great. Like, hell, I learned how to farm from Curtis on YouTube. Like, I always grew stuff, but I learned the business model of lettuce and salad mix and salad nova, all that from Curtis on YouTube. And it's they're great things, but people get way too far ahead of themselves when they're starting out because they see Ray Tyler on Instagram and they see all of Curtis's old videos and all these great, amazing farms. And I want to do that, but people don't realize how many times Ray failed to get to the point that he is now. So I always tell people, please start small. I literally beg people because if you start off big, you're going to fail and there's a good chance you're not going to keep doing it. It's just like anything. If you're not good at it, you quit. But if you start off small and you have some successes, like you said earlier, confidence grows and you get in a little swing of things and you learn. And as far as what you said about the small land, I'm on 0.37 acres and I use less than half of my farm right now. The other half is usually cover cropped because I don't have the time to take care of it. But that's because I've been doing it 7 years and I've gotten so efficient with my bed space. And also, I don't have running water on my farm, which is a whole another story that we don't have to get into. But it's made me more efficient with watering. It's made me more efficient with crop selection, with making my soil better, and all of those things I wouldn't have been as good at if I was running 10 crops every season and I had all this extra space. Starting small actually makes you a better farmer in the beginning because it forces you to learn how to do certain things like intercropping. Intercropping to me is a huge deal because I've learned to plant so many more things in such a small space. Whereas if I had 5 acres, I'd just plant 5 rows of this and 5 rows of that. And it just wouldn't make me a better farmer. So now when I scale up, I don't have to scale up by a half acre. I can scale up by 3 or 400 foot beds, and that's equal to somebody else's half acre.
With the model you run now, so you're selling to 35 to 40 people a week. So that's your two lists. So one week it's 35, the next week it's 35, and you're something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're in Dallas. Just to give people a reference, I was looking at some USDA data this morning about just produce wholesale pricing. And Dallas is not New York City or Boston or Seattle in terms of pricing. It's
Right.
middle range. So this is relatable to people in the middle of the US where a lot of farms are. So don't think, hey, we're talking New York City pricing here. With 35 people a week, what's the revenue you take in per week at that scale?
So let's put it this way. Figure the number of people, and I'm not dodging the question. I just want people to put it in their own context. multiply the number of people you sell to times the amount that you sell. So, for example, that's a bad way of putting it. 35 people, I usually sell salad mix for $5 a bag, and then two $3 crops, onions and carrots. So that's $11 times 35 people, for
So you're,
example.
you're about 350
350.
a
Yeah,
week, something like that.
which
Okay.
doesn't sound great. That's $1,400 a month, Diego, and
And
for a part-time job.
yeah, you're working 2 hours in the mornings and then a few hours on the 4 to 5 hours Saturday, Sunday morning.
Yep.
And it has the potential, like you said, if you wanted to, say tomorrow, the school you work for says, yeah, we love you, but we're shutting down the whole school. And
Hmm.
the kids are moving to another place and we don't need two PE teachers. Sorry. How much do you think you could pretty quickly, say within 6 months, dial up the farm to?
I could double it easy.
Okay. Yeah.
I
So
could double it simple and probably closer to triple. Just because, and it's really easy for me to say that because I live in Dallas. Like I actually live outside of Dallas in a little, not little anymore. It used to be in a subdivision with 600 homes. There's 600 homes in my subdivision alone, and we have a Facebook community page, and that's where I got started in my neighborhood. I just posted some pretty pictures of my lettuce and said, "Hey, I have salad mix." I got 20 customers in my neighborhood, and I haven't posted anything on there in 2 years. Across the highway from me is a 2,000 home subdivision. So I don't even have to go more than a mile from my house, and I could probably sell to 100 people a week.
yeah, so for
So
1,400 bucks a month, you're 20-ish hours a week, and it has the ability to scale. I want to give some idea of if you could turn up the volume, because some people, they'll be like, hey, that's great, but that's not going to get me to my goals. But it's not, that's just where you're at now with all this.
mhm.
And that's probably by choice of it all. Yeah, I think the hard part for people is sitting down at the beginning and saying, where do I want to go with my farm? And how fast do I want to try and get there?
And that's the
And
problem. That's where the problem is. That second question: how fast do I want to get there? They say they want to get there next year.
which,
By December 2025, I want to be making $50,000 a year. And I hate to tell people that's if you're a first year farmer, that's not going to happen
yeah, I
unless
think
you're just
it's low
amazing.
odds.
Very. So let me give you one example. I had an intern. I constantly have interns, like 6, 7 months, and then they go start their own farm or whatever. And I had this kid. His name's Alejandro. He's an amazing guy. He come out and he was with me for 9 months, and he knew he wanted to do this. So he told his wife, he goes, "I'm going to work for a solid year, save all the money I can save, pay down all my debt." So he did. He started his farm January 1st, 6 weeks ago. He found some land, leased it from a guy, and he paid off all of his debt. He had $10,000 cash in the bank, and that way, if it fails, he's got a fallback. And he's already selling. Like he started planting January 1st, and he's already selling produce and making revenue 6 weeks later. And that, excuse me, that's honestly the way people should look at it. I don't know how familiar you are with Joel Salatin, but he did the same thing with him and his wife when they first started. They saved for 3 years and said, "Okay, we're going to give this a go." They had money in the bank in case it failed. And after 2 years, he said he could excel and they were perfectly fine. So you have to plan. If you want this lifestyle or any lifestyle at that, you have to plan ahead for it. Just because you're willing to work hard for it doesn't mean it's going to happen. You've got to plan for the bad stuff. You will have bad stuff happen as a farmer.
I'm with you 100%. And I don't disagree at all. I just think people have a hard time seeing this. Like, I think it's good advice. It's the advice I would give somebody, but it's not advice people want to hear. It's like, you want to get fit
Mm-hmm.
and lose weight. You control your eating, you work out, and you try and lose 1.5 to 2 pounds a month. And they're like, huh. They start doing the math and they're like, oh, that's going to take me, you know, 5 years to get to where I want to be. And no, yeah, it could, but that's the sustainable approach. You try and crash diet your way to it,
Mm-hmm.
but you're failing in a week. And We've done nothing. So I think these are just good, solid base principles of where do I want to go? How fast do I want to get there? Because I think the faster you want to go, the lower the potential odds. Not that you're guaranteed success at your model, but I
No.
think it definitely lowers the risk and it lowers the initial stress and workload. And those are things I think potentially kill a lot of new business owners. Overwhelm due to workload, overwhelm due to stress, and overwhelm, I think, can be mental and physical. So if you can just dial back the pressure some in, and I'm not saying don't put the work in, make progress, see results, build, learn, but just do it at a much slower rate than you think you need to. And like you said, that maybe you think society expects you to go at a certain pace. That's the bad thing with all this tech stuff. You're in Texas with Elon down there and everybody
Hmm.
idolizes entrepreneurship and all that. And they think it's literally, hey, to the moon. But very few people can handle that. And there's extreme costs to that. There's there's nothing wrong with building a lifetime business that takes 10 years to get up to speed, especially if you never take on debt along the way. You have a good family atmosphere along the way. You're happy along the way. You enjoy it along the way. I don't see what the big deal is in that, but you have to believe in your soul it's the right way for you. And if you don't, none of this will resonate at all.
No, that's very well put. I enjoy. There hasn't been one day I've gone to my farm when I'm like, God, I don't want to go. My farm's 6 minutes from my house. It's halfway between my school and my house. I go to my farm at 4 in the morning. I leave at 6:30, and there are so many days when I'm like, I think I'm just going to call and tell them I got a flat tire and just stay at the farm a few more hours and work because I enjoy it so much. There's just nothing more. I tell people if I won the lottery, I'd still go to my farm tomorrow. Now I would call you and I'd have a paper pot transplanter and I'd have all this really cool stuff, but I'd still go to my farm and farm. I absolutely love it. And it's so rewarding when people buy your stuff. I have people tell me all the time, Mike, my lettuce has been in the fridge 2 weeks and it's still fresh. Why can't the grocery store do that? And then I tell them it's set on a truck for 4 days and set in the back of Walmart for 2 days and blah, blah, blah. But people just appreciate good food now, I think, more than they ever have. And they're willing to buy it. They're willing to pay a little bit extra for your food as opposed to buying it at the grocery store. And one little tip I'll give away is give it away for free when you start. Just give it away because I promise you, there's no doubt in my mind. You give it away, just it's like giving drugs to a new drug addict. Like just give it away and then they'll come right back and start buying from you because they taste the freshness, the crispness. They're still good 6 or 7 days later. Or tomatoes. People tell me all the time because I sell to so many city people that's never had a fresh tomato. Mike, those tomatoes were like eating candy. Well, yeah, because they weren't hydroponically grown. Sorry to the hydroponic people. Soiled tomatoes just taste better. And they've only had Kroger tomatoes before. So people will buy it. So if you have to give it away free your first 6 months, do it because you're going to gain a customer base from that, just that one little tip right there.
Absolutely true. And that's more valuable than money at the beginning. I think you want a relationship because you're trying to build with these early customers for the long term. You want feedback.
Mhm.
Hopefully, these people tell you if it stinks or if they love it. It gets you confidence.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you one quick story about that, Diego. The first time I put arugula in my salad mix, I had 12 DMs within 12 text messages within 2 days, and 3 or 4 of them were holding up the arugula like this. What the hell is this? It's absolutely awful. Never put it in my salad again. Apparently, people in Texas are not fond of arugula, or I let it get too big and it was too spicy. One
Right.
of those two things. But oh, they have no problem telling me not to put arugula in their salad mix. So I never grew arugula again. Yeah, you're right though. They will give you the feedback.
Yeah, and then you learn that and you go on. You don't have to waste your time with arugula anymore, and you just grow some sort of other more mild salad mix.
Exactly.
All right. Let's say I have a 5-person start and I'm gonna grow your model, 3 crops. I'm just gonna pick salad mix and we'll just say it's Salanova and we'll say carrots because it seasonally that works and green onions. So those are our 3. Okay, we're gonna roll with those. I have 5 people. I'm gonna be on a weekly cadence. What's that farm look like? It's not the logistics, but what am I looking at if I'm standing on the deck glancing out at it to make that happen, do you think?
Number one is it's where are you? Are you up north? Because if you're up
Well,
north, I'm going to tell
let's
you.
say we're in Texas.
Oh, if you're in Texas, you don't even need a cat tunnel. Like to start with, I always the people I've helped here, like Alejandro, start March 1st. He started in January because he had a cat tunnel that I sold him when I bought my high tunnel. I sold him one of my low tunnels. But the plan was before I bought the high tunnel was start in March because it's not going to be cold enough. You're going to have a good start. You're going to have good 6 or 7 months before you ever need to worry about season extension in Texas. So start with 3 or 4 beds. I always tell people start with one more bed than what you think you need. So if you think you need 3 50-foot beds, go ahead and make a 4th one and put a tarp over it just in case your succession isn't perfectly planned out. You have that extra space. And then I like to cover crop. So you said onions. Let's pretend like it's summer. Let's do summer crops. So we've got a bed of tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes. I would have planted a winter cover crop for those cherry tomatoes, and then I would have tarped it and killed it, which would have given me a really good mulch. Because in Texas, it's all about heat and keeping the ground cool and water retention and everything. So I would have had one bed with a dead cover crop in it for my tomatoes. Then I'd have another bed spaced out probably 4 weeks, 4 sections for my salad mix. So I can plant once every single week for 4 weeks. And then that other bed would be probably all spring onions because you could leave those in the ground for a long time without having to harvest those. Does that answer that question? Does that kind of give you an idea?
Yeah, so let's say I know lettuce right now that's coming out. Lettuce, you're maybe on a 100-foot market garden bed. You're maybe around 40 pounds per bed. You could get, if you're just 5 people, let's say they take a pound each. That's 8 weeks of harvest. I don't think you're going to get 8 weeks out of that one crop. So you could probably get away with a 50-foot bed. I'm just trying to think. Let's say you had 50-foot beds. You maybe have 10,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And
10,
then,
50-foot beds.
yeah, is that, or you think that's even way too many?
Yeah, for 5 people, that's what. Yeah, that'd be way too much because I sell 8 inch pound. I sell 8 inch, 8 ounce salad bags,
Okay.
and
You're maybe even
that's
shorter
about
than that.
8 heads. Yeah,
Yeah. So it could be 25-foot beds or something like that to manage
yeah.
rotation. So not much.
Oh.
Some farms have 50, 100-foot beds or 100-foot beds. We're talking 10, 25-foot beds or something like that. So backyard, this is like advanced homesteading kind of
Mm-hmm.
scale for stuff. So that's not super intimidating, I think, for a lot of people. I'm with you. So let's assume I don't think you need a lot of equipment. I always try and talk new people out of just buying stuff. I don't think you need a lot of stuff to start. And you correct me if I'm wrong. I think in the beginning, you could get your bed set up however you want. Maybe you rent a tiller or something like that to just get them set up. And then you could
Mm-hmm.
manage that low of number of beds probably by hand, just using
Yep.
basic tools. So you don't need a tiller. You don't need, let's just say you're not going to do any season extension stuff. Let's say you can get away without a tunnel in the beginning. You definitely don't need the paper pot.
You
Maybe
need you need drip irrigation.
Okay, yeah, you need irrigation for
That
sure. I think you need some sort of refrigeration. You're going to need. You're going to need a wash pad.
Hey, can we touch on that for 1 second, Diego?
All right.
Because I think this will blow your mind. I don't have a wash pack, and I only have a outdoor refrigerator. I have a refrigerator in my garage, and it's the old refrigerator because we bought a new refrigerator, and I just took out all the shelves because in this model, I deliver every day.
Right.
So
So
I
you're
don't have to
harvesting
have
every
like a,
day?
yeah, I harvest every morning. I package it, I throw it in the refrigerator, and then that night I deliver it. Now, if it's going to rain or it's going to get real cold, I'll harvest 2 or 3 days ahead of schedule, just in case, because I can't harvest when it's frozen, like it was last couple weeks ago here in Texas. So you don't even need a mass, like one refrigerator for that small scale is
Right.
plenty of packaging. And as far as the wash station goes, I don't wash my lettuce
If you keep it clean,
because
yeah, no need to, right?
because it's underneath a tunnel, so it doesn't get dirty. Everything's on drip. So it's never dirty. And I always tell my customers when they start, I was like, hey, give that a good rinse. It has not been washed. It's not that dirty. And it'll also stay fresher for way longer if I don't wash it. Because if you don't get it completely dry, then it gets slimy. And me not washing it, it never gets slimy. So it stays fresher way longer, in my opinion.
I mean,
As a new farmer, right there, that saves you a ton of money with no wash station and no cool packaging. If you're
and
starting off as small, like we're talking about.
the tunnel might be 2 grand. Might be able to get NRCS funding for it. If you can get 4 beds in there and it's 100 feet long, that's 3 30-foot beds times 12 or times 4. So you're 12 30-foot beds. That might be all you need, one tunnel, and you're literally growing all your successions of every crop under there at a small scale. And you
I
definitely
started
want,
with one tunnel. I
okay, yes.
started with 100-foot tunnel is what I started with.
So you need a few just cheap cell trays to start, plugs in, your basic DIY prop setup, somewhere to start seedlings,
The
maybe.
the best advice I give people on the sorry to cut you off, but you said prop, and that's the one thing I tell people to spend money on. That's the one thing I tell people because that's the key to your whole farm. If you have crappy germination or you have crappy seedlings or whatever, you're starting behind the 8 ball. So I have a whole list that I email the people that I consult with. Get a Lowe's rack. They're $100, but you can get 6 shelves on that rack. 6 shelves holds four trays to a shelf. So you get 24 trays per shelf for $100. Then I have the LED Behringer lights from Home Depot. I'm not from Home Depot. I'm sorry, Amazon. And I just tell people, yeah, the lights aren't that good. Put a tray underneath them, flip the tray upside down and move them closer to the light. And then as they germinate or whatever, pull the tray out. As they start to grow and get stronger, pull the tray out, and then they're fine. But I don't skimp on seed starting. I buy the good, real heavy duty trays. I've got trays that I've had 7 years now because they haven't broke or anything. So that's the only part that I will tell people if you're going to spend a lot of money, to start with your proposition area.
Yeah, I think you got to have the good soil. You definitely want a setup there that's nice. I could push back on the trays, but that's nitpicky on it because I think whatever that could matter, it might not. But anyway, long story short, we're not naming, this isn't a list of 50 items at the end of the
No.
day. You're probably, especially if you get a tunnel, that's a few thousand, by far your most expensive thing. You're well under 5,000 for sure. I think I'd have to price stuff out all in, but you just don't need everything. And obviously we have a tool company, but there's a scale that makes sense for certain things and there's a scale that doesn't. And there are way too many tools on the market that I don't want to say that. There's a lot of tools on the market that are very useful in very specific cases that most likely you're not one of those specific cases if you're starting out. So I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You've done this for a long time. You got to correct one problem and one tool will solve it. Well worth it for you. If that saves you labor, time, headache, hassle, makes a better product, makes it safer, whatever. But for a lot of people starting out, this is basic stuff. And you can probably get a lot of it at Lowe's, which tells you how basic it is that you don't even have to go to some sort of ag supply company for it. So the startup cost part of this is all not big. It's not a non-starter, which
No,
now,
it's something you can save for 6 months. Like if you say
Yeah.
in October, hey, I'm going to give this farming thing a shot. I'm going to try to start farming March 1st. Save $100 a month, a couple $100 a month for 6 months, and you've got enough to get you going to start with. And then take that money that you make, that March, April, May, June, July, and then invest in yourself a tunnel for the winter. And then once you have a tunnel, in my opinion, that's what takes you from a backyard gardener to being able to sell year round in most areas. Because you just can't sell anything if you can't keep it dry during the winter. It's not the temperature that the cat tunnels work. It's keeping everything from being frosted over and getting tip burn and all that. Like I am a huge fan of the cat tunnels and the high tunnels.
Absolutely. If you can afford it, which cat tunnels now, there's a fair number of companies that sell them out there, relatively inexpensive. They'll grow with your farm. So even
Mm-hmm.
if you add more land over time, I think you'll always find a use for a cat tunnel along the way. They're, oh, if you buy a good one from one of the major market garden supply companies, they're gonna last. They're not cheaply made or something. It's not like something's gonna wear out on it. So yeah, I mean, you're avoiding debt this way, which takes pressure off. You don't have big startup costs. You can get out of the red quicker. So say I save up, I put some seed capital in. The less money I put in for seed capital, the less I have to pay off. Once I'm playing with house money, then I feel good about it. I've told myself I'm making progress. And then you can just use profits, like you said, to scale up from there. And I've done a couple interviews with Tony Barlow. I'm blanking on where he's from, like Michigan, maybe. I should know this, somewhere up in that vicinity. But he has the same model. That's what they've done with their farm. Of we're not going to put a lot of extra money in or any extra money in. The farm's going to pay for itself. The farm's going to upgrade itself. And that way, we feel like we are keeping things nice and clean. We're never overcommitted. We're not taking good money out of bad. And he's trying to do, I think, a lot of what you're going after too, like earlier retirement, pay off, not that he has debt, but pay off his house and that type of thing. So eventually he can have a life where he's very financially independent. And then they have this farm running that they have no debt on. It's grown itself, it's paid for itself, vibrant customer base, and then they can just do that and have a great life. And I think there is a model there, but it's definitely a 10-year plan. This is a slow farming approach to success. This is not a get rich quick scheme, which too many people think you can do. And that's not
Yeah,
happening.
it's one of the things that I've learned over the years is so many people are really good at saving money when they're 20, 30, 40, 50. They got a good job, they've invested a 401k or they put money up or whatever. And like me, I'm a teacher. So at 52, 51, I get to retire and I've got a nice paycheck for the rest of my life. And honestly, I'm tired of kids anyway. So I want to retire. I'm just tired of teaching. What am I going to do the next 30 years of my life? What am I going to do? And this is a perfect thing. Most people that have a garden that's grown up growing stuff, or even if they haven't grown up stuff, grown up growing stuff, at 50 years old, they can start a new career. They can start their next chapter in their life doing something they love and they control everything. One of the big things that I do financially is I count backwards. So let's say you're retiring, Diego, and you're bringing home $3,000 a month. That pays my bills, but it's cutting it close. What if you started your own farm? And instead of saying I want to make $50,000 a year, what if you said the first few years I just want to make my house payment, which is $1,000 a month. If you want to make $1,000 a month, that's 200 bags of salad mix a month that I have to grow, or that's $128 baskets salad mix and one other crop, carrots or tomatoes. And you can start counting backwards and see how much you have to grow times how many people you have to sell to hit that $1,000 that frees you up $1,000 a month. Not every farm has to be $100,000 a year farm or a $300,000 a year farm. If you're retired and you need an extra $1,000 and you love to grow food, I'm not saying I can show you how to do it without sounding arrogant. Like it's not hard to do to make $1,000 a month when you're 50 years old selling produce if you have any type of customer base around you.
No, I agree. I think that's it. The get rich, people are missing the definition of what rich is. It's earning an amount that makes your life better.
And you enjoy doing it. That's the biggest thing to me is I enjoy it.
Yeah, so if you want to, it's like you can get rich quick this way, but it's a long-term step to doing it. This is how I've tried to view my business. I see other companies out there in the tool space and hey, they can do whatever they want and it's great. But I look at it like my sister-in-law works for me, my nephew works with me, we have some other people. I'm trying to keep them employed, doing something that they love, working around people that they love working around. I'm trying to work hours that fit into my lifestyle. I'm trying to make income, just like you said, that just fits certain chunks into my life to cover certain areas of my life. And that's what I want. There's no need to say, hey, I need to be making $50 million a year in tool sales or some number. And I'm going to want to buy a bunch of other tool companies and do all that. Because I realize for me, if I want to do that, I'm sure it could be possible, but there's trade-offs. It's me working crazier hours. It's me maybe taking on some debt. It's me maybe taking on more risk. And that's just not what I need. But I've come to terms with it. And I believe it in the deepest part of me of this is what I'm cool with. I'm never going to make my salary's never going to be $1 million a year or something for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. I'm not trying to do that.
Yep.
And that's how I think you have to approach farming. And I think that's really where you've landed is here's the sweet spot for what you want in your life. And then you build a farm model that makes that so you don't have to worry about over creating something that's not going in the direction you want your life to go anyway.
And farming also opens up other opportunities like consulting. I make pretty good money consulting on the side, doing exactly what I'm doing with you, is just explaining how I did it. And so maybe one day somebody listening to this starts their own farm and they tweak something, they change it, and now they can help other people get started too with consulting, or they can write a book, or they can do public speaking. I've done several public speaking and hope to do that more in the future. So once you're, I won't say a legitimate farmer, but once you've been farming for a while, people will pay you for your experience if that's something you enjoy doing. I've been teaching for 25 years, so I feel like I'm a natural born teacher and I know how to communicate with people. Moving into consulting has been a really good thing, really easy for me, helping new people get into farming. And maybe I've helped a few people that's been farming that hasn't had success in different aspects. And so why don't you try it this way? Because I have to think outside of the box for everything that I do on my farm. I don't have running water. I don't have electricity. I don't do farmers markets. I have limited amount of time. So there's a lot of things that I've figured out of necessity that I enjoy passing on to other people.
Yeah, I don't know why more people who farm don't consult. You obviously have to want to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some skill at it. But I think it gets blackballed as this if you can't farm, you teach thing. And I don't agree with that at all. You know,
No, not. I would do anything to pick people's brains. Like I'm probably one of the most annoying people on Instagram because I have no problem reaching out. Like I've DM'd Ray several times, and always been very nice answering my questions. What disease is this? What caused it? What can I do about it? Jesse Frost, he's been really nice on DM a few times, but people are willing to pay. I'm really cheap from consulting just because I don't want to. I just like enjoy helping people, but farmers aren't afraid to help other farmers because we know we're not competing against each other. We're not a car company competing against another car company. So few people eat fresh vegetables and fresh food. We don't have to compete. There's enough people, enough demand for our supply.
yeah, I mean, there could be 100 of you in Dallas And I think you'd
Wouldn't
all
put a dent.
still be fine. Yeah, I just talked to a lady who aired on a Kara Cash Flow maybe a week ago, and she's outside Houston, so another big city down there in Texas, and she's kind of the prime suspect in a good way for a model like this. Later in life, looking to retire from the oil and gas industry, wants to start growing food for fun, wants to start a
Hmm.
farm, and like this is the model I would jump into and go after it.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love it. So for people that you do consulting, let people know where they can reach out there. And then also you're working on a book. When's the anticipated your release date of all this?
So people can find me on the easiest thing is Instagram. Dallas Half Acre Farm is my Instagram handle. I'm on there all day. I teach elementary PE for God's sakes. I have time to scroll Instagram every once in a while during the day. Kind of, and I enjoy it. If people just have some random question you want to ask about something, feel free to hit me up. If you're interested in consulting, just say, hey, what do I get? Talk to me a little bit about it. I'll shoot the bull with you for a while and see if I'm a good fit for you. As far as the book goes, I'm actually meeting with my editor tomorrow night. The rough draft is pretty much done. And then we got to go in. She's going to tell me, add more here, talk more about this over here. Because a lot of the farming books, and what I think mine's going to be a little bit different, is it's short, concise, very simple. Whereas there's a lot of really good books out there, but for somebody that's starting out, it's just too much information. It's just too much in the weeds type deal. Whereas my book is grow these three crops, try these three crops. Here are the varieties of the crops that you should try on a small scale, like Muir, Red Cherokee, and Salanova are the three lettuces I recommend to people. Anyway, it gets more detailed for people where they don't have to look. And in the back of the book is going to be links, not links, but a place where they can find exactly like the lights that I'm talking about, the Lowe's rack that I'm talking about. So they can go look for it, they can find it. And it's just very pretty much start a farm for dummies type book. And I'm hoping to have the my work done on the book by May 30th, which is also the last day of school for me. And then hopefully during the summer it gets published. I'm not exactly sure how long all that's going to take. Hopefully a few weeks, and then I can spend all summer promoting it, getting it out there, answering people's questions, really trying to push it in people's hands. And then on the flip side of that, if you DM me and say, hey, I read your book, I bought your book, I have a couple of questions, I'll be more than happy to help you out with your questions.
Yeah, it's awesome. Book coming this summer, fall, so people can watch for that. They can hit you up for consulting in the meantime. And if you're looking to start a farm, think about starting slow. They can start growing uh, on a small scale, look for a few customers, deliver, get some feedback, rinse, repeat, and then they can be on a path similar to what you're doing. Definitely try and have you back on when the book's out to help promote and help others out. But thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I love your podcast. I listen to all of them in the morning with my headphones on at the farm. And you've just produced great content, Diego, and you have for a long time, and I hope you continue to do it in the future. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.